To hire and keep the best, we need to support a culture that values letting firefighters be aggressive problem solvers. We need to allow them to take pride in doing something that very few can or are willing to do. If we are to attract those that are dedicated to this calling, we must be okay with letting firefighters be firefighters. In the Colony, Texas, we sum up our mission and a commitment to our people in a simple statement. We will come for you. As one of our captains puts it, this is our why. But it takes a big commitment to get there. We need people with good character who don't mind getting dirty and who are motivated to train because they realize that their success and survival depend on it, not because it's a box to check on the monthly to-do list. We need a culture that values independent thinking and people who look for opportunities to solve problems, fire, rescue, and emergency medical problems.
Engine 1 for Car 1. Car 1's on scene. Assume in command. Give me a CAN report.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Goldstein, Stickers of the CAN Report. Man, I have got an amazing guest today. I am so honored and so privileged to have him in. I really don't even need an introduction, but I'm going to have to do it anyways because, you know, some people might not know who he is. So I got Chief Scott Thompson out of the Colony, Texas, on the CAN Report. And man, we're going to be trying to hit a lot of topics today. We'll see what we get away with, but I got Chief Scott Thompson out of Texas. Thank you so much, sir, for being on the CAN Report.
Mike, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this. Let's have a good conversation.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Before we start the program, I always like to give a shout out to my sponsor, Engine House Designs, Engine House Designs, LLC. He's a working firefighter out of Memphis, Tennessee. He makes a whole lot of great products for firefighters or unions or whatever you need. Chore jackets, flags, hats, you name it. He's got it. Hit him up. Make sure you're supporting businesses that are run by firefighters. And so also please click the like and subscribe button so I know you guys are listening and that you're liking it. And if there's something you want to see or hear, let me know. If you got something good that you want to talk about, hit me up and we'll see if we can get on the show. That being said, I'm just wanting to jump right into it.
Let's do
Chief
it.
Scott Thompson. All right. I'm going to get into your bio here, sir, because I love it. It's not super long, so it makes it pretty easy for me.
Wow.
Chief Scott Thompson entered the fire service in 1982 as a volunteer while attending Texas A&M University. He began his paid career with the Plano, Texas Fire Department in 1986. Over the course of his career, he has worked in operations, training, and administration in multiple progressive fire department organizations. Chief Thompson has been the fire chief in the Colony, Texas since 2009. He has a bachelor's degree in emergency administration and planning, is a Texas certified public manager, and has been a hands-on workshop and classroom presenter at FDIC since 2002. Awesome. Thompson delivered the FDIC Day One keynote in 2024. Chief Thompson has had numerous articles published on the subjects of leadership, training, command and control, suburban fire operations, and firefighter rescue and survival. He is the author of The Functional Fire Company, Positioning Small Groups for Success and Survival. He owns and operates Functional Fire Company, LLC, fireserviceleadership.com. His two sons are on the job, Garrett and Braden, who work in Arlington, Texas. He can be reached by emailing scott@fireserviceleadership.com. With that being said, thank you so much, Chief.
You nailed it. Thank you. Thanks for the bio.
Oh man, absolutely. So I got a couple things that we were talking about in the lobby that I really want to hit on. I brought up the article so I don't forget it, but it was the article in the Colony, Texas Civic Alerts here I looked up, and it was about achieving the EMS Provider of the Year. You came up with a great model for your department. But before we get into that, tell me about the Colony.
So the Colony it's in a great location. We're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We're just north of Dallas. We're surrounded by Frisco and Plano, which are very well-funded departments. Carrollton, and Louisville. We're on Lake Louisville in Denton County. In 2009, the colony was kind of referred to as a hole in the donut. Everything was going on around us, and not much was going on in the colony. We were kind of known for our massage parlors and cigarette and alcohol sales, and so there wasn't a lot going on. It's right next to Louisville, where I retired from. It was a 3-station department. The previous chief was moving towards a Quint concept, and I know you just had Rob on, and so that's kind of what I walked into. And because we weren't a real attractive place for economic development, we had a lot of land available. So in 2015, Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway discovered the colony. They made a huge investment and created a entertainment 425-acre entertainment venue called Grandscape. And with that, we've had to add 2 firehouses. We've more than doubled the size of our department. So today we're 5 firehouses. We run 3 engine companies, staffed with 3. A squad company that we try to, a New York style squad, we try to staff with 4, do it about 80% of the time. And then a 5-person truck company, that's minimum staffing. We won't go below that.
Okay.
Battalion chief and 3 ambulances. And so that's kind of where we are today. We do have a single role paramedic program, meaning that our 3 medics are staffed by single role medics. They're not firefighters. They're not going to be required to be. Everybody in the organization is a paramedic except for me. So everything we run is ALS, and we do our fair share of EMS like everybody else.
Wow, that's and I saw that you are getting a bendy truck.
We are. It's delivered. Going to be delivered Thursday. The captains and Chief Rice, our training officer, and the crews, they did a phenomenal job speccing that. We tried to build it as absolutely short as we could. I think it came in at 58 feet. It's a true truck, doesn't even have a waterway on it. We've got provisions. And the reason we did that, before everybody says, we want to be little New York and all the stuff that I hear all the time, is we've collected a lot of data since we put our first truck company in service. And in the time that we've had it in service, we pulled lines off of it twice, and one of those was for a car fire. We have 3 firehouses that are very close together. So yeah, we're excited to get it in, and then right on the tail of that, we're going to be getting a new squad to replace our Squad 18, and it's going to be a walk-in squad. So it's going to be a walk-in with a 300-gallon tank on it. We couldn't get away with 2 rigs without water on it. So yeah, a lot of exciting things going on. But the bendy truck is coming. We're going to start the training and hopefully have it in service here first quarter of next year.
That is amazing. How big is the community of the colony? How many people?
It's about 50,000 people. It's 18 square miles. It's long and narrow. So if you were to drive from the extreme south tip of our fire district, Firehouse 4 is, all the way to the north, you have to go through another city. You have to go through Frisco to get there. It's a 20-minute ride. So we're long and narrow. We're pretty dense. We have one area of town, which is Austin Ranch, which is, there's 20,000 plus people living in 1 square mile. It's a lot of densely populated multifamilies, and so we've got a little bit of everything. We've got some very large homes out on the peninsula. The majority of the city are what we call Fox boxes. They're these little 1,000 to 1,500 square foot homes, single car garage, very, very small, and that's the majority of the city, and that's really what drives our current deployment model and how we handle fire operations. Because in those homes, when they catch fire, there's not a huge window of opportunity to get in there if anybody's inside. And so that's why we do a lot of things that we do, is for that small home.
And just for my out of curiosity, what was the need for the tiller?
The streets are so we currently run a mid-mount tower ladder, and that's been in service almost 10 years. And we looked at getting a tiller back then, but we only had 3-person staffing the truck. And I'm not about to put a tiller in service with 3 people. I'm sure you're familiar with what happened with Danny Dwyer in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so we bought the mid mount, and then during that time, we were fortunate. We put a rescue. We call it a rescue. It's kind of like a Roy and Johnny squad. in service with the truck. So right now we have a captain, 2 apparatus operators, and 2 firefighters assigned between those 2 vehicles. When the tiller comes in, the rescue is going out of service. Everybody is going on the tiller. So we needed one um, way back. There's many streets that the tower ladder can't even make the block. They've got to walk down. And so
Mm.
we have we have streets where you could step off and you're going to step on the hood of a car. I mean, the colony was not meant to be a city. We don't have a core business area. It was meant to be a big neighborhood. So there's a lot of areas of town which the streets are just their access is really difficult. We so much when we redesigned our engines, we went away from the velocity because we could make it about 4 inches narrower, and that had a huge impact. We shortened them up. So guys just did a really good job of paying attention to what our problems were and coming up with a solution.
Now, was there also before you started or when you got in with the Colony Fire Department, was there a recruitment and retention issue?
No, they were doing pretty good. Not to where we are now, but they were still doing pretty good. The problem we have is we're located right next to Plano. Plano is one of the highest paid departments in the state. They have minimum 4-person staffing on everything, and they just announced that they're going to a 24/72 schedule.
Mm.
So we had to find a way to compete with that, and we did that through culture. So yeah, they were doing pretty good, and we still are. In 17 years, um, we've had very little turnover. We're starting to see a little bit more because that pay gap has gotten so huge between us and Plano. So it's not as good as it was for 12 years, but it's still going really well. But the amazing thing is the quality of people that we recruit. We haven't hired anybody out of an academy, and I can't remember when. And so everybody we hire comes from another department, and a
Hmm.
lot of them are experienced, seasoned, um, high performing high performing guys. So we've been very fortunate. It's not me; it's the whole organization. You know, a recruitment and retention problem looks a lot of different ways, but our guys just do a great job, and I think their commitment to preparedness, training, and then aggressive problem solving, I think attracts and keeps those that want to do this the way that we do it. Not saying it's the only way or the best way, but it's our way.
Right. Now, when you said you change it through culture, what does that mean?
So I've been studying culture for years, and I started submitting papers to FDIC on culture back in 2002. And it was before Bobby, when Bill Manning was there, and it was like the fire service isn't ready for that. But what I realized, I've worked for 6 different fire departments, a couple iconic fire service leaders, and then since I've been in the fire service, I've traveled to firehouses all over the country and ridden out with them. And I've always tried to identify, what makes these companies above average?
Hmm.
What makes them kind of stand out? And what it was that microculture in that firehouse. And so I started to realize if you think about it, culture influences everything in the organization: training, how we follow policies, safety, everything is impacted by the culture. And so I became a student of culture. When I went to the colony, I authored a document called the Excellence Vision and Professional Standards. And what it really was culture put into words. And just by luck, I would love to say it was because of my dynamic leadership or salesmanship, the organization bought into it. And so that is still very much our soul. So to summarize it is we as an organization have committed to a chosen culture. We refer to it as a high performing learning culture. And I'm getting ready to retire. And I think if you were to ask the men and women of our organization, the hard chargers, ones that are dialed in, one of the things that they're worried about is that a new chief is going to come in and screw all that up.
Hmm.
They're probably going to challenge a single role paramedic program because it's unique and they don't understand it. They're probably going to challenge our engine and truck deployment model because they don't understand it. And the organization is very passionate about those 2 things. And so right now there's some anxiety that they may lose that if they decide to go outside for a fire chief.
So with that, how are you implementing succession planning? Like,
Well,
do you have that in play?
certainly, and I had one ops chief that I was very actively engaged in mentoring and coaching. He just got offered another fire chief's job, so he left us. But my operations chief right now, Jason Bonds, um, been coaching and mentoring him regularly. The same with my assistant chief over prevention and community risk reduction. So yes, we have a very robust mentoring program that goes hand in hand with our succession plan. And we have phase testing that we've implemented. So we have a lot of things in play. Garrett Rice was just named our first training chief.
Hmm.
It was always a duty that was shared, by a battalion chief. He did double duty. And so we finally have somebody in that position who is really getting into the weeds on succession planning, on mentoring, and some of those things. So yes, I'm a big believer in it. I think it looks a lot of different ways, but we're always kind of thinking about filling that next level.
I love it. So hopefully you'll have people that will apply for that position when you retire from it within your department, and you're grooming them, and they have that culture that you were just talking about, that are going to hopefully keep that moving in the right direction, because
Yeah,
it
and
seems
I
so
think
strong.
that will be the case if now I also part of the succession plan, and I challenge him, is they've got to come up with their own vision and their own message. The worst thing that they could do if they're coming from the inside is say, we're just going to keep doing what Thompson was doing.
Yeah.
The organization, I've been there 17 years. That's a long time for a fire chief. So they need to come in with their own message, still maintain the core philosophies and principles and that the organization is supportive of, but they need to have their own message, and so that's kind of part of the challenge also.
With that, you sparked a question in my mind here: is how long is too long for a chief position? Because I hear a lot of people like, well, I'm only gonna be a fire chief for 5 years, right? Like, I've heard the model of you want to start slow into that position. The first year, kind of slow, getting a feed. You have your plan. The second or third year, you start implementing the plan. You're now starting to work. The fourth year, it's working. And the fifth year, you kind of want to just see what you have for succession, or how it's going to grow if you leave, and then after the fifth year, you see everything, you sit back and watch it grow, and do what you want it to do, and then you want to leave before they start to hate you. So what do you
Well,
think?
you summed it up, and you did a great job. So I don't have a good answer for that. It's certainly based on the organization and the individual. One of the advantages that I have, and I don't recommend it, but because I've worked for 6 organizations, I started in Plano, Texas, so I know that organization. I worked for Rick Lasky in Louisville. I worked for Arlington Fire Department, which is a very large fire department. Then I've worked for some smaller departments. So I've had a lot of opportunities to try things and learn from my mistakes. And one of the things I say is I've always kind of been chasing a vision of what I thought being a firefighter should look like.
Hmm.
And it's taken me a long time to refine that. Again, my vision is not any more valuable than anybody else's, but every one of us has some kind of idea in our head of what we think this should look like. And so, 17 years is probably a little too long. We had a growth period. We were doing a lot of cool stuff and a lot of projects. And now that the dust is settling, I can tell you this, the organization took my vision and took it to a point that I never imagined. The organization is, and I've said this in a lot of podcasts, I hate to repeat myself, but the organization is so much smarter than I am now, that one of the things my self-talk is am I holding the organization back? I'm planning my exit strategy. January 6th will be 40 years in the fire service,
Wow.
17 years in the colony. And so I'm not going to be there much longer. I was thinking about checking out January 6th, 2026, and then I realized how much insurance was going to cost me. Next year I'll hit 65. I'll be able to collect Medicare, so I'll just have to worry about my wife. So somewhere between a month and a year is my timeline there. And so yeah, but probably a little long. It's kind of like a marriage. We know each other's strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses and all those other things. So they're ready for for some fresh blood. You know, the old man's kind of getting old and stale, so they need somebody new and young in there.
I guess that's where you just said it right there. Kind of stale. I'm saying you are, obviously, right? But like, I think after a while you get comfortable in that seat, in that position, and then you start to close your eyes of what's going to be best for the organization, as you said, and what's going to be the best thing to have to keep moving it forward. And it's hard to come up with, like, to accept new ideas at times too, because you get set in your ways, and you know, we can't help but think as we get older, I know it all, I've seen it all. You know, and it's hard to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. So I think after a while, you do need to stay fresh. You can't be stagnant or stale. I think, you know, you have to, that's reflection, I think, as for anybody, especially in a chief's position. For me, from the outside looking in for a chief's position, you have to have that deep reflection. Am I doing my organization, my men and women, a service by staying in this position? Or now all right, I've done what I've set to do. I've reached my goals. I want to leave on that high. And now it's time to bow gracefully and take that long walk and let somebody else do it.
You're exactly right. We're fortunate. We have some hard chargers, and the last half dozen of ideas that have been introduced into the organization have come from the men and women. Bryce Campbell with our fitness program and working with this phase testing. You know, we talked about Sandy. He's doing some cool stuff with some of our truck stuff. The committee that spec the tiller. So, you know, sometimes right now my role is kind of just to say yes and get them the stuff that they need.
Yeah.
It was almost kind of a perfect storm though. We had during this 5 or 6 year period, we were moving so fast, hiring people and building stations and doing all those things that, you know, I played all my cards. And so, yeah, that's one of the questions I ask myself on a regular basis. Am I still contributing at a high level? I don't want to be that chief when I walk out the door because finally, you know, he should have left a year ago.
Yeah.
So I try to challenge myself, but you're right. It does get, you know, the organization, and I hate to use the word autopilot, but the organization is self-correcting. A lot of the problems are taken care of in the firehouse. The majority of the organization is playing off the same sheet of music. We got our knuckleheads like everybody else who are trying to go a different direction, but out of 99 members, you know, 95% of them are they're moving in the same direction. So, you know, all that kind of helps. If we had a split council and a split organization, and if I didn't get along with our association, it would look a whole lot different.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. Absolutely. And so, what I want to talk about earlier was then you initiated that program, the single role provider. What made you come up with that?
Well, it was out of necessity. So when Grandscape, that entertainment venue, came in, we were going to build 2 firehouses in about 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. And we were going to hire a lot of folks, 30 plus people. Everybody in the organization was already a firefighter, paramedic, and there was no way that we were going to be able to hire enough firefighter paramedics to fill those positions. There's too much competition in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so we looked at a lot of things. We looked at doing an open hire where we hired them off the street. Our police department does that. City leadership was not real fond about that because how long it takes them to get on the street. We talked about dropping down the firefighter EMT. They felt like that was lowering a standard. I don't know why they didn't feel the same way about having them drop the fire cert. But really what we said is, you know, hey, there's a whole group of people out there in hospitals and ERs or flight medics, their private EMS, that the fire service isn't tapping into. And so we pitched the program. We had to hire 18 and we hired 6, 6, and 6 because if it didn't work, we could lose the first 6 through attrition. You know, we weren't going to hire all 18 at once. But I can tell you, and I'll say this to anybody you ask me, I'll put our paramedics up against anybody. They love it. They take ownership of our ambulance. We didn't hire any extras. So when a single role paramedic's off, a firefighter medic backfills so that they still maintain their familiarity with the ambulance. Our medical control, we got an awesome medical control, Dr. Bazell. They measure about 32 metrics every month we're very much a standard driven organization. We put times kind of to everything so that we don't get stagnant. But every month we're measuring our metrics. Uh, the hospital is constantly coming out and recognizing our crews for STEMIs, trauma alerts, cardiac things, and it's just been a huge success. And so now I'll be honest. You ask one of our captains that has a medic in their house, would they rather have a medic staff with 2 firefighters for fire situations? Yes. So they're stepping off with more manpower. But put that aside, I think the majority of our members believe in the program. They welcome them. Our medics, unless you read the name on the shirt, you can't tell they're any different from our firefighter medics. So we're 5 or 6 years into this now, and it's
Okay.
just worked out really well. We always have about 70 to 80 to 110 or so applicants put in for the single role. So there's always some high numbers. It's a pretty strict process. We have a strict physical ability test because, not all the medics that work private EMS are in the best shape. We were kind of worried about that. We have a very structured indoctrination program that we put them through to introduce them to the fire service and the firehouse. So it's really been a good program, and we get a lot of calls on it. And like I say, and I mentioned this before we came on, if you don't rely on them on the fire ground, there's really not a downside. We don't have battalion chief drivers. So when we dispatch an ambulance on structure fires, once the word working fire is communicated, a second ambulance is sent. And when that first ambulance gets on scene, that senior medic pairs up with the battalion chief and becomes their scribe. They know
Man,
pack tracker. They know how to
love
wear
that.
a drone.
Love that. I love that, Chief, because without even hearing this, I was talking to my BC last year, and then we were talking about this, and I said, if you had an actual just a medic ambulance that was just literally that, think of what you could do with them. Because if you have your firefighters on the ambulance, they're going to work. But if you have your medics who are actually sole providers and there's nothing to do at that time, you could use them because we don't have chauffeurs. We don't have aides as well. So,
and they work great. Their penmanship is very good. They're detail oriented. So the first medic, one reports to command and becomes our field incident technician. The other one gets all their gear in case there's a firefighter or fire victim. And then they set up a camera and they start filming and videoing. And then when if it's a working fire, a second medic comes and they take over rehab. They can change out air bottles. I mean, they can do anything except go into the hot zone.
Yeah, they could see they could even set up your hydrant instead of having the one guy set the plug, right? Like that. Boom. Hey, I need you to set up that hydrant right there. Cool. They tag that hydrant and they go back to the command post and help out wherever they need.
They can do technical rescue stuff.
Yeah.
In Texas, we're regulated by the Texas Commission on Fire Protection. They just can't go into a structure fire, but they can do everything else.
Now, what is the physical test you would have the medics do for your initiation for your testing process?
All right, I got to see if I can remember it. So it won't all be in order, but they have to carry medical bags up and down the stairs so many times. We have this backboard kind of prop where they got to pick up and lower a backboard with so many pounds on it so many times. They have to drag a dummy, I think it's a 160-pound dummy, the same distance that our firefighters have to. They do some other kind of upper and lower body things. And then the last part of it, they go in the back of the ambulance. They have to do, I think it's 200 CPR compressions, and then they got to immediately go to intubate the patient.
Okay.
And so it's tough. We have more single role paramedics fail the physical ability test than we do firefighters. And so it's a pretty tough test. And I think a lot of times people get the mindset, oh, it's a paramedic physical agility test. How difficult is it? So they don't prepare at all. But if anybody wants that, I can send it to you. We've got it written down, our EMS chief. I can't recall it all off the top of my head, but yeah, it's a pretty tough test.
I love that. Now, have you had a lot of applicants come from private ambulance services? Like,
Yeah.
is the bulk of it? Because I imagine, like, again, ever since I heard your program and what you did, I absolutely love it, and I've been reading up on it, and I would imagine that anybody who works a private ambulance service would just like run right to that testing process, because I used to work in the private ambulance field, and I honestly, I was a dispatcher, and I sometimes hated my job because I felt so bad for these guys because they are running all over the place because all we care about is the money. In private ambulance service, it's literally just how many runs you can do for that time frame, right? And we don't care that you get out late. We got to earn that money. But at least for the fire service side, we're going to take care of you. It's not about the almighty dollar. So
Yeah, they get city benefits,
yeah,
which they never had. They're paid really well. I think a single role paramedic starting at like $78,000. We have a career track now. We have a promotional. So yes, we get a lot from private EMS and we get a lot from the freestanding ERs. But one of the big selling points is we don't have any nursing homes in the colony, not a single one. We have one assisted living, but no nursing homes. And so the alls are doing are 911 stuff. We get, with the lake and with the entertainment district, we get a lot of really unique stuff. They're responding with a fire company. And so, yeah, I think we have several flight medics that we have just a wide variety of people coming out of the military that were medics in the military.
wow, that's amazing. Zero nursing homes. In my community that I work in, we got a few.
I want to put that on our hiring flyer, but I don't think
Huge.
that would be well received. Put right above the pay, put no nursing homes.
Yeah, no, that's actually not a bad promo for sure. That's you don't have to respond to many falls, when you don't have that many
Yeah.
nursing homes. So what does your firefighter medics think of? Like, do they get rotations on the ambulance? Do they want to be on the ambulance? Or are they like, you know what, we're cool if we need to fill a spot? Like, how do they stay relevant or, get those skills?
I love and hate firemen for the same reason. Well, since everything's a paramedic engine company, they're still doing their skills. I think on the average, a firefighter medic rides the ambulance about every 6 to 8 weeks, and I still get guys complaining they're riding the ambulance too much. We have some guys that don't mind it. One of the things that's a problem, and I get this, I understand it, but when you're a firefighter medic on the ambulance, you're not going to fight fire. And could we adjust that? It's too much of an accountability challenge to have one person on that rig that's not a firefighter, another one that is, and where do you plug them in? I think if I allowed them to put their gear on there, we'd put air packs on there, and if you were assigned to the ambulance, you could be assigned a fire role of responsibility, that it wouldn't be as bad. But I get it. They know when they're on that ambulance, they're not going to do any firefighting.
Yeah. Yeah, we for us, that's our model. Is we're all firefighters, and every ambulance has a medic on it, and it all has gear. We have the C.A.N, we have our forcible entry tools,
Yep.
and there's times that we'll have to go in. We'll show up in an ambulance, and we're going to go in as assisting with search. But like we said earlier, if we're not on a call, if we're not dropping off at the ambulance, or if we're not in the middle of a transport, we get really busy with medical calls. As much does a lot of communities in my state that run ambulances. They are task saturated on the EMS side of things, and training of that also takes over as well. That we have to stay so relevant on EMS training, that how do you get back to basics with your firefighters? Because
And
something's got to give.
You mentioned a couple good points. We were always calling an audible because the medics weren't there. So we'd have to adjust. But we do a lot of training. I mean, our guys will train sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And those firefighter medics were always at the hospital, so they were missing it.
Yeah.
So now our members are able to train together on the fire related stuff. So it's helped in a couple areas. So it's really been hugely valuable to us. Very, very successful. It's a little challenging paying them because they don't have the same exemptions. But for us, for a small suburban, it's working really well. Dallas has adopted the program. They're using single role medics. Fort Worth just took over their EMS, so they're introducing single roles to their system. Georgetown, there's a half a dozen or a dozen departments that have implemented the program and have seen positive results also.
How difficult was it to present it to your city manager?
Well, so you see the shirt that you have on?
Yeah.
If my boss doesn't have a meeting, he's going to have a shirt like that on. He's a huge music buff. So I say that to say he's very laid back and casual, and he has a tremendous amount of trust in me.
Hmm.
And so I went in there and I pitched the program. I said, there's nobody we can look to figure this out. We're going to have to make it up as we go along. Another advantage of the program when we implement it, we were saving about $250,000 a year.
Well,
So if
why
you
is
took
that?
out the topped out pay of a single role medic compared to the top out pay of a firefighter paramedic, 18 positions, we were saving about $250,000. So when you can start the conversation off with that, you get their attention. But it was not a hard sell at all. And I can tell you, my boss now with it is probably one of the biggest fans of it. Uh, we get so much positive press from it, recognitions from doctors, nurses, families. We got the MS Provider of the Year, and we're a fire first preparedness culture. I mean, we're all in on the fire side, and I make no beef about that. I talk about that, but our paramedics are so awesome
Yeah.
that it's catching up. We've got to be careful, or we're going to become very much an EMS culture because they do such an awesome job.
You said it earlier too, is that we're missing out on some untapped resources with not utilizing this program. I think
I think so.
I see so many amazing medics, but they don't want to be firefighters, and that's okay. I tell that to my wife. My wife asked that question. This was like maybe last year, and I was talking about you and your program and what we do at work, and I said to my wife, I said, man, if we could just do something like this around this area, I know it will work.
Yeah.
And she asked the question, it's like, well, how come the medics don't want to be firefighters? I said the same reason why I don't want to be a medic.
Right.
Like I don't have that desire. They love medicine. They love working on animals.
They like to practice medicine.
Yeah.
Firefighting, paramedicine, it's an art and a science. And they love, I got a couple guys that have their fire certs. They could easily, I think we've had 4 that have crossed over. And we have a couple that could, but they love it. That's what they want to do, and they take ownership. I mean, I'll sit in on a CE and have no idea what they're talking about because I'm not a paramedic. And our single role paramedics are challenging the doctors in a very respectful way.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just listening to them talk at that level and I've worked for a lot of progressive EMS departments. I've never experienced anything like it. And here's the thing, though, and I call this the hypocrisy of the fire service. You said you have a very EMS driven department. I hear that all over the place. It's the thing we do the most of. It's critical. It's essential. Yet we put people on there who have no desire to do it. Now tell me how that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's your turn to ride the ambulance. And the guy's like, yeah, they pay people so they don't have to ride the ambulance. And so we put people on there who just can't wait to get off of it. Well, how can we say we're providing the highest level of service? Now, there's a lot of great firefighter paramedics, don't get me wrong. But there's a bunch who, like I say, would rather have their toenails pulled out than ride the ambulance. And so I think you could make a good argument that the patient is not getting the same quality of care when somebody's on there who just has no interest. It's just, let's get into the hospital as quick as we can, get back to the house, and carry on with our day.
I absolutely agree. And I think about it too. I had this discussion with one of our medics, and we were talking pump operations and calculations and everything. And he even said, he's like, because I was building a pump card for us and a pump chart. And he said, I can't remember all of this because I'm a medic. I need to remember this stuff. I need to remember that. That's my primary responsibility. Yes, he's a driver, and yes, he's a pump operator, but he's also a paramedic, and he's a damn good paramedic too. And he was straight up and honest. He's like, I have to remember that stuff first. So I do need these pump charts. I do need this extra help because I can't retain all this information. That's a lot of information. And the EMS world is changing way faster than the fire service world. The protocols are always upgrading, right? Everything's changing. Look at just recently, people are losing their minds about the Lucas and some other protocol changes, right? Like, we can't. How do you expect them to absorb all that information? You can't. Something's got to give. The brain can only hold so much. So I absolutely love that you have that forward thinking, that proactive thinking. That yes, we need to have strong medics who actually do love paramedicine, because we are definitely missing on an untapped resource. We have such good medics, and here in New Hampshire, we are in a shortage of medics.
Yeah,
We
everybody is.
right, we just can't get them.
Everybody is.
And then you want to double duty them and have them to be medics and firefighters. It's something on the knowledge and experience and retaining that information. Something's got to give. You can't get it all. So,
And I don't know how much you know about the colony, but we have a very strict engine and truck deployment model. Our engine guys predominantly stay on the engine. Our truck and squad guys, they switch off. And it plays into just what you're saying. We talked about being a firefighter and a paramedic. Now let's talk about being an engine firefighter and a truck firefighter.
yeah.
And, I think everybody agrees that experience is a commodity. Experience is gold. And so there is a way where you can assign your people. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but where they're getting those repetitions over and over and over again. Most fire departments, okay, you're going to spend a week on the truck, a week on the engine, a week on an ambulance. And so, now you got to keep all that stuff and stay fresh on it. And I just don't think that model, and a majority of the American Fire Service does it. I'm not bashing them. But when I say, what's the science, what's the reasoning behind how you do your staffing? People just usually say, because it's easy. It's a button, a seat. Well, that's insulting to me. Being a firefighter, being a medic is a very complex job. And so, I believe in positional firefighting and putting firefighters where they're comfortable, where they're built. I use the example. If the Colony Fire Department goes to the roof tonight, we do vertical vent. I don't see a scenario where somebody's doing that's not recently rehearsed. And by that, I mean who hasn't recently done it in training or on a call. There's no way that somebody's going to get up there that hasn't done it in 3 or 4 or 5 years. And so just by that, we're reducing the chance of a mishap.
Yeah.
You take a guy who hasn't been on a roof, and now you get a career fire. He's already a little hyped up. He's got anxiety, and now you send him to the roof, and he hadn't been on a roof in a long time.
Yeah.
I think there's a better way to do it. A lot of people disagree with me.
But no, you're absolutely making a valid point. And I was just thinking as you were talking that, I think about like the reluctant officer. They promote because there's times where, I didn't want my competition to get it, or they forced me to do it. And I think about that with the paramedic role, the reluctant paramedic. I got my medic because I needed to get a job. I didn't really want to be the medic. I had to get the job, or they forced me to do it because we're short, or I needed this for more money. And then when shit hits the fan, it's kind of like, I didn't really want to do this anyways, but here we go. I'll give it my best effort. It's the same thing as that officer spot. Like, I didn't really want to be an officer, but here I am. We'll make do with what we got.
Yeah.
And then why put people in those positions when you can't think outside the box and look at other resources and maybe change those models?
Change.
Yeah,
because
change.
It's change. And the
Absolutely.
mindset of, well, I had to do it, you should have to do it, right? Yeah. But like I say, we get a lot of critics. A lot of people say we're doing it wrong. But I think inside our walls, it's proven its value, and it's something we will continue to do as long as I get the support from leadership and our members continue to be awesome at doing it.
That's awesome, Chief. I love it. I love, again, your forward thinking and the way you present it and the way you talk about it. And also just the way you lay things down. You really keep it at the fire level too. You don't make it overcomplicated.
Well, I'm not a smart guy. I'm a very basic. I believe in breaking things down to the most basic
Yes,
level.
sir.
And a lot of times in the fire service, I talk about this in training, we neglect the technique. We start teaching tasks, tactics, and strategy, and we don't spend the time that we need to at the technique. And I always say, if it's not right in the head, it's not going to be right at the hands. If I can't visualize what success looks like, when I go to perform it, who knows what the outcome is going to be. So there's, and Aaron Fields describes it the best, the skill acquisition and adult learning. And there's a process for doing it, training and context. And the fire service is missing that.
Mm-hmm.
And, this, hey, because you learned it in the fire academy, you should be able to do it 20 years after you get out of the fire academy. I mean, just think about that. We'll have people that have spent 10 years in prevention as a lieutenant. They promote to captain, and right away they go to a rig.
Yeah. And they haven't done any of the basics, but for quite
They
some
haven't
time.
kept up. They haven't been to a fire in 10 years, and now they're a boss.
Yeah.
And so this everybody should be able to do everything. I think is nearing its end. I think it's going to be a liability thing. I think, and it happens all the time, but we're starting to see our actions being challenged more and more. And I think somebody's going to connect the dots and say, wait a minute, you put this person in this position and they haven't done it recently. What were you expecting? That now we're relying totally on luck.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something we can't rely on.
Well, it needs a seat at the table. The problem with luck, it eventually runs out. Take it from somebody who goes to a casino every once in a while. You got good days and bad days.
Now, with that, and we talk about including these outside resources and integrating good paramedics into the fire service, you have another program. You have many programs, but the one that I saw, and I haven't taken, but the creating an inclusive work environment. And you have this course, the creating a culture of inclusion and diversity in the fire service. And he says is crucial to a high-functioning team. This training collection course covers important topics such as inspiring a professional culture, addressing bullying, and promoting inclusively towards all groups and individuals. What is it, and how did you come up with that?
Well, it was kind of by accident. I'd like to say it was kind of planned, but another one of the benefits. So this is just me, and I've had these arguments. I'm against bullying in the fire service.
Amen.
And when I was in Plano, I worked in one of the toughest firehouses. I mean, people would go home sick if they got assigned to our firehouse. So I saw a dose of it. I never really saw the value of it. Now, people will argue, rite of passage, that's how you build trust and all that other stuff. There's a difference between a rite of passage and earning your way versus everybody ganging up on one person with the intent of making them quit, cry, or sending them to the hospital. And so that was number one. So I don't tolerate bullying, and my organization knows that. That doesn't mean that they don't have to clean the toilet and raise a flag and make the coffee, but we want our people to be good firefighters before we want to be good janitors. So it kind of starts there. But then, every city has been under pressure to diversify more, to become more representative of the community they protect. Well, one of the big advantages, and this was not planned, when we went to the single role paramedic program, our organization diversified overnight. In every group. And so we took that and kind of looked at that. Now that's a diversification action step. So it's we just hired a guy. I'll give you an example. We just hired a guy. He was in our organization for 2 weeks, and he was looking at our bumper load, and he goes, I think there's a better way of doing that. Now, there's going to be 2 responses to that, right? Hey, shut up. You haven't been here long enough to lend. Or this kid had a good captain. He goes, let's try it. They pulled it a couple times. They sent it around the battalion. They videotaped it. They sent it out. Boom, we made the change. So here's somebody in our organization, 2 weeks, and they're changing a pretty influential part of what we do. And we've had more and more and more of that. So, we're working with adults. Everybody has a background, varying level of intelligence. You can welcome that into your organization, or you can say no.
Yeah.
We've chose to recognize it. Everybody's a valuable member in our organization.
Chief, I love that, but I didn't want to interrupt because it was such a great topic. But when you just said that, like that guy has only been there for 2 weeks and said, hey, I think there's a better way. The fact that he was already comfortable to say that, because most people would not, especially only being there 2 weeks, especially being brand new. I take he was brand new into the service, or was he lateral?
He came from another department. Okay. They all come from he wasn't there long. He was a relatively new guy, but new to us, but he had been in the fire service for a minute.
But being at that level, to be so comfortable to amongst the new people he's with, to say, I can show you a better way, but not crapping on it. So it comes with 2 parts. He was comfortable enough to say, I think I know of a better way, but he also didn't crap over and go, hey, that way isn't good. Let me show you my way. That was something I had to learn when I became a lateral on my new department. Was I knew some ways and knew some techniques, but I'm not going to say I know this better than you because I've had more time. And no, that's not going to work. Like, be respectful on both parties. The party that's going to listen to your idea, you got to be respectful to them. And the party that's listening to you with your new idea, they need to be respectful at the same time. So I love that culture is already there for you, where this person already felt that much comfort amongst his crew where he can say, can I show you something different? That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a great idea. If we didn't recognize it, we would have missed it. We have another member. He just made apparatus operating. He just did a podcast, Bryce Campbell, but he came from Bryan, Texas. He was a driver on their ladder truck, just got recognized by the 100 Club for making a grab. He was on a lieutenant's list getting ready to make lieutenant, and he gave all that up, came to us. We don't have lateral, started over as a rookie, took a huge cut in pay, back to that's a huge resource. That's an asset.
Yeah.
This guy, he's got as much experience, more than half the guys working. How dumb would we be if we told him to sit down and shut up?
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. I love that. And I feel it's getting a little bit better, to be honest with you, with that is, again, my personal experience when I went to my department and we're doing a training inside and I was being respectful and I just wanted to watch and not give my 2 cents, because where I came from, it was very off-putting if you had an idea. So as I was there, I was watching my battalion chief. He turned to me and goes, Mike, you teach this. I know you know this stuff.
There you go.
So go ahead, jump on in. I was like, well, I just want to be respectful. I didn't want to. He goes, no, that's why I hired you for your knowledge and for your experience. Like, come on in and jump in and show us something. I don't want you to sit in a corner, because I want you to get the information that you've acquired. So let's do it. Like,
we're in the minority. We are in the minority. The majority is going to say, hey, you haven't earned your right to talk yet. You haven't earned your right to think, and so that's going to be a part of us for a long time. And I get some of it, like I said, but
yeah, bullying, again, I agree with you 100%. There is no place for it. Not 30 years ago, not today. And it's not like being honest. I mean, you can be honest and blunt with people, but you don't have to be a bully about it. And if you're there to help them, it's being honest. You want them to succeed and grow, not tearing them down. So how do you do that? So in your class and then in life, how do you bring that culture and how do you teach people this?
Well, I mean, so you're talking about the culture itself?
Yeah. How do you really get people to understand, like, this is not going to work for us, for you in the fire service and you as leaders? Let me tell you that this isn't going to work. How do you get them to understand that?
Well, I can't say that to the fire service. I can only share what we do in the colony. I'm not going to make that mistake of saying our way is the best way. I always start out with, I'm not trying to change policies, procedures, or practices, but this is what's worked for us. And culture is what the organization values. And so you got to have a conversation about that. You've got to be deliberate about the culture. Every organization has a culture. There's no such thing as a cultureless organization. So you got one or two choices. You're going to accept the culture that is going to exist and hope it's a good one, or you're going to pursue something different, a chosen culture. That's what we did. We had an incident about 3 years ago. It almost cost me a vote of no confidence, where we had some bullying going on. I didn't handle it correctly. I made some mistakes, but we're a stronger organization on the backside of that because I assumed some things were understood. You see these chiefs on the news where something horrific's just happened. I just saw somewhere there was a big hazing, bullying thing going in a firehouse, and the chief's like, well, you got to be proactive. You got to make, part of our swearing in is that you will respect men and women. You got to make it clear, and you almost got to preach it daily. And then you got to be very active. It's just like if your kid gets bullied in school, you don't have somebody say, I'm going to take care of it. There's a bunch of excuses. And so we're just going to hit it head on, and God help the person who bullies somebody in a colony fire department. There's going to be consequences. And if I'm going to be labeled as wrong for that, I can live with that. Yeah. But I would much rather have that than some poor kid put a gun in his mouth because he worked with a bunch of assholes, most of who were insecure. That the really, really solid firemen, and I've been to firehouses all across the country, they're not the ones doing the bullying. They're worried about perfecting their craft. They got enough confidence. They want to share with the young firemen and make them better. It's the ones with the insecurities, the ones who don't have their own identity, that they've got to pick on somebody else, and it just carries over from the schoolyard into the firehouse, and there's not that's not going to work in the colony. That's all I can tell you.
No, I love it. And I think you're right. It doesn't work in the colony. Like I said earlier, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work in any firehouse. I think narcissism plays a lot into it. Like you said, people are very insecure, and those are the ones who lash out or close their minds because it's not their idea. And, like you said, like the bumper load, that could have gone a completely different way. Because, if they got the ego and they got the narcissism and they got the whatever else you got going on, they would have shut that guy down and you would have lost a really good asset. Because he's only 2 weeks in, you'd be like, no, this place isn't for me. I'm out.
And that word gets out. And so, the fire service is a network. So now other people hear, hey, the colony is a bunch of assholes. No, nobody wants to work for us versus, hey, come on here. They're going to respect you. And so that's a recruitment action step. It's just,
it's a Yelp review. That's how I always equate it.
There you go. It's a Yelp review, right? And
we're a business. We have, if you have a disgruntled employee that left because of management, or it's like sitting down at dinner, you didn't like it. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go to Yelp and go, hey, do not go here. Yeah. Management didn't give a shit about me, and I left the restaurant. It's the same thing in the fire service world. If I'm not happy with my department and they treat me like crap, I'm going to leave. But I'm also going to tell people, the people I care about, do not go here. I'm telling you, you're going to be unhappy. But come over here, you're going to be really happy. So don't eat here. Come eat dinner with me at this fire department.
So part of what our culture really values is the mission mindset. And from myself down to the newest firefighter, that is the focus. And that is something that we can describe, we can package, and we can all rally and agree upon. If you don't have those things, then the organization is going to do it, and every firehouse is going to do, you've probably heard, we've got 3 firehouses and 3 shifts, 9 different ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. That's another one of my big pet peeves. We're the colony fire department system. People's survivability should not be based on whose district they live in and who's working today. Oh man, I got B shift. All the mopes are working. They don't train. They don't do any of this stuff. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And so that all ties into this culture thing. We're going to respect one another. We're going to be consistent in our operation. But the most important thing is that mission. Nothing is more important. No individual is more important than the mission, because that's what when we raise our right hand, that's what we're swearing to fulfill. And that's a pretty powerful thing. And I mentioned earlier that the colonies kind of become self-correcting. Don't get me wrong. We got problems like everybody else. I don't want to sit up here and talk like we don't have issues, but the organizations become very self-correcting. And if somebody is tampering with that culture, the guys are going to step in and fix it.
And that's exactly right there, Chief, is that we need more of that. That's what I want to see happen more, is if you see or hear something wrong, to speak up and to say something. Just don't let people tear each other down. That's the one thing I've noticed.
Courage.
That takes a lot of courage.
You got to have uncomfortable conversation, and people are going to laugh at you, make fun at you, and talk behind your back. And
that's a difficult one.
A lot of guys don't have the courage. They want to be liked by everybody. That's one of the biggest problems facing officers in the fire service. They want to be everybody's buddy.
Yeah.
They don't want to have the difficult. They're an embedded leader. I get it. But when you accept the speaking trumpets and the pay, the responsibility, you got to invest in sacrifice. And sometimes you got to sacrifice your comfort in terms of, I got to go have that uncomfortable conversation.
Yep. And everybody who's listening or watching, I'm not saying like you can't like have fun with each other. Like we rip on each other all the time. I think that's what we love in the fire service, right? We bust each other's balls all the time, and that's okay. But when you're personally attacking somebody, again, if you're calling them your racial slurs, or you're making fun of their religion or whatever they come from, that's not right. Like, and you tear people down because of what they believe in, or maybe even because they're not getting it right. Like maybe they're just mentally they're not picking up what you're putting down, right? That is a time for you to be a mentor and to coach them, and not tear them down and call them stupid, or maybe they're physically, working hard and they're still just physically not getting this job. Instead of fat shaming them, maybe if you're physically much, coach them like, hey, I'm going to put you on a plan, or come and work out with me. We can work out off hours. We'll go to my gym and we'll do it together. So you don't have to be worried about anybody else poking fun or staring at you. We'll do it together. That's the firemanship. That's the brotherhood.
Imagine
That's the
if we could
culture.
get to that point.
Man,
You
that'd
know,
be
and
great,
I come
Chief.
from a generation where I got licks from my football coach if I messed up. I mean, he had a paddle and he'd whack my ass. My parents would whack my ass. The generation coming to fire service, you better not put your hands on them.
Yeah.
They're, you know, they didn't play sandlot tackle football. They didn't arm wrestle all the things we did. You put your hands on some of these, and you're gonna get an assault
Yeah, absolutely. And
complaint against you.
yeah, you're big time. You got an assault suit right there waiting to happen. And I think also when it comes, like when you have, like you just talked about, you played sports when you were younger. And I just had a great gentleman on my podcast, Chad Chris, and he used to play sports. And I think when you have somebody who already has that sportsmanship mindset, that we're here as a team and if you fail, I'm failing. So I'm not going to let that happen. We all want to win together because it is a team sport, and the officer is the coach. And the coach should want their team to succeed and to win. And every day we want them to win. And if you have
a lot of people coming into fire service that never were in Boy Scouts or played team sport, they played video games, and so they don't have that team mindset. It's all about me, and it's not bad people doing it. That's how they were raised.
Yep,
and we got to remember that. Not everybody. We did our own officiating. We made up the rules. We figured it out, and we moved on and played. Or somebody took their ball and went home. That's gone. That's gone. They've got other strengths, but they don't know what it is to be a part of a team, how to contribute, because it's always been about me. Mom's, stepped up, fought my battles for me.
Yes, sir.
Today I get moms call and say, my son wants to be a firefighter. How old's your son? 25. Why are you calling for your son? Well, he's too busy playing video games.
It's funny, as I get that a lot too. People they'll ask me, how do I become a firefighter? And I usually refer them to go online, to go to the academy website or to their departments. Like, I'll lead you down that road, but you have to make that step of calling up that fire department and asking, how can I join? And they'll tell you, but you have to make that first step, is call them up, ask them for a ride along. You've now made the first step. You're interested. Yeah. Now they're going to know you're interested. Second step is showing up at the firehouse and then doing ride time and seeing what they're all about. Yeah. And that's where you get to interview, as we said before, you get to see that culture and you get to see the crews. And we just had a young gentleman ride on our truck the other day, and our lieutenant there was like literally giving like a job interview, like asking him questions. Okay, we're on this call. What are you going to grab next? What are you going to grab for this? What are you going to grab for that? What do you do? Right? And that's the kid's thinking. He's like, oh, this was great. Like, he got education. Even if he didn't get the job there, if he doesn't apply, he just got educated. Like, he got to ride along. He got the lieutenant who's been on that department for like 28 years, asking him some really good questions, and he got some really good calls out of it. But if the culture sucked and they just didn't say anything and just, there's another ass in the seat wants to potentially join, and no one talks to him, well, again, it's a Yelp review, and he's like, I don't want to go to that department. That was horrible. And they're just dicks to me the whole time. And
the other part of that we're going to find out is maybe the job's not for them. And we got to stop making this job for everybody. we got to stop lowering our standards and just trying to fill it, because this stuff is too important, and we work in a profession where if one person messes up, other people are going to pay the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's why I say I like to break things down to the most basic components and then kind of build it up so that we understand it. That there's a ripple effect for everything. And the really good leaders in the fire service understand that ripple effect. And just that awareness, that mindset helps control a lot of things that go on within the culture or the chosen culture.
Yeah, I love it. And since we're a topic of bullying as well, man, we get it online too. And I think that's really difficult when you're trying to present something good. I mean, man, people, like you said, you have people that just rip you down for the ideas you have and the things that you're doing, but you're brave enough to continue to push forward with that, because you're doing it out of good, that you're promoting the fire service, you're giving back to something that gave so much to you, and you're going to have haters wherever you go. You're going to have those keyboard warriors and those bullies. And we were talking earlier, and I saw it on social media. Like, you were talking about something that was right next home to you, where Louisville had that big fire, and they did a great job. And you laid it out to other people, like, hey, I see what you're saying. But you did it in a really good way with just saying like, hey, just because the book tells you to do something doesn't mean that book is right. The game's always going to change. Again, we call audibles in the fire grounds all the time. And Louisville did a fantastic job with changing the tactics. Yeah. So now with that fire, and you were praising them because, again, you have a personal relation with that because that was your place. Those were you guys.
And we had that fire 20 years ago in that same mobile home park. And Calvin Allison was a captain, did vent enter search on that. The outcome, the neighbors told us the wrong side of the trailer, so we lost 3 that day.
Wow.
So that's something in the history. But the other night, they showed up with a 5-person truck, and there were 4 victims. And so that's all hands on deck. But they didn't establish command right away. They didn't get 2 in, 2 out. You know, they didn't get their 360 done. They went to 3 sides of the building, and they did everything they could to get those people out there. 3 of them were in full arrest, and they got them back. So you think about that. Now, I'm not a medic, but when somebody stops breathing, you don't have a lot of time.
Yes, sir.
And had they would have died, the fire service go, oh, well, they were dead before we got here. There's nothing we could have done. It was too dangerous. Well, Louisville did what I would expect to happen if my grandkids were involved in a fire. And there was going to be a lot of people that say the risk wasn't worth all those things. And so, I don't intentionally try to piss people off. It doesn't bring me joy. But at the same time, I'm gotten to a point where I'm not going to tolerate somebody who has very little knowledge of something dictating. Like I said, I wrote a book. I'm not an expert. I did some research. I put hours in. I have an understanding, but there's still a lot of opinion. And there's a ton of emotion-based opinion in the fire service. And we love to throw the data word around. I'm a big believer in data and the science, but, people pick and choose how they want to use it. And so I always say we're still very much a frontier. Like I wrote, the best way has not been discovered yet. We're still arguing about nozzles.
Yes, we are.
We don't even agree water is the best thing to put on a fire because we add foam to it, bubbles and air. So, I mean.
But you nailed it with that post. And because again, I love the way you did, because you also took responsibility. I am an author. I write books, but I don't expect people to operate off of my book. There's data out there, and again, the emotions based on all that. But the last part I really, really liked is firefighting should be situational first, local second, based on capabilities and limitations, regional third, and what the book says last. If someone tells you their way is the only way, run. Based on what I know, if Louisville found faulty experts, the survivability rate of the victims, well, and I think that was, everyone else, if you want to, you can go ahead and read that. But I thought it was fantastic because you put it out there, but it's true. Like, everybody can just sit back and say they should have done this and they should have done that. But you would have had, 4 or 5 victims, fatalities. But you have 1, and then they went to work. They got off the truck. They knew there's victims. They did search. And suppression at the same time. They got the job done. They pulled out victims, and they started working those victims. That's a lot of work, and that's a lot to do. And I think we all can agree that not every fire scene is going to be perfect, right? No, there's always going to be something you think you could. If you think your job is always going to be perfect, and you walk away from any event and go, "Yeah, man, I was perfect every time," you need to leave. Like, there's always something you could have done better, or your crew could have done something better, right?
So, and that was a career fire to many people. That's a career. People go their entire career and never pull anybody out. When I did the keynote, I titled it "Safety Standards and Being Cowboy Ready," and boy, did I got my tail kicked for that. Cowboys on the fire ground. But what I was saying is exactly what Louisville did. There are going to be those situations. We got an expression in Texas: "You better cowboy up." Right? This is the time to put everything that you've learned, muster every bit of energy, get yourself settled down collectively, and go to work. There's 1,000 excuses you can make. Oh, it's to this, it's to that, because we've been programmed. But that was a time not to be a cowboy, but to be cowboy ready, cowboy up, get the job done, and have the best possible outcome.
And you're absolutely right, Chief. you hit it. You have to cowboy up. You have to be ready and be confident in your skills and your training to get that job done. Because man, you
It
don't want
doesn't
to look.
mean freelancing. It doesn't
Nope.
mean being careless. It means being a well-trained, unified team that has a purpose and they're being deliberate about their actions.
Yes, sir. And if anyone's curious, Louisville Fire Department, this happened on the 26th, or I think it was the 25th, that they had, actually it was the morning of the 26th, that they had
morning of
this structure
26th came
fire.
at about 2:30 a.m.
So if anyone wants to look into it, it was a great job by Louisville Fire Department. They made grabs, they put water on a fire. They did what we talk about, like the ones who really give a crap. They did what we are reading about. They did what we talk about, and they know there's victims in there. They're gonna face heavy fire. They're gonna face heavy smoke, but that's our job. And that's what we need to do. Sometimes things are going to get missed, especially if you're the first to arrive in truck. You got victims. Are you going to get the 360? Probably not, because you're going in there to get the victims. So like you said, if it was my kids or your grandkids, I want them running into the house. If they didn't get the 360 right away, me as the father, I am not going to say, man, you didn't get that 360, you know?
Right. And I think their chief, Mark McNeil, summed it up. He did a press conference and he said it was maximum effort. And he said, yeah, they pushed the envelope. They pushed it right up. But that's what we prepare for, right?
Yep.
We're going to push it to the limit on this one because it's worth it. And no firefighters were injured. Lives were saved. Lessons were learned. Experiences were gained. They're going to be in a better position for the next one.
I love it, Chief. And as we're winding down, question I want to ask you, man, you get 40 years in doing all this. Who inspired you? Who was a mentor to you to really for you to just do all that you're doing? There's got to be some person or some people in your life that inspired you and kept pushing you to keep doing this.
My first fire company that I was with, Ernie Royce, Bob Ficklin, Randy Stone, great senior man, great company officers. I think that was part of it. I actually grew up 40 miles from New York City in a little town called Croton-on-Hudson. And there was a volunteer department there. And one of my good friends was on the volunteer department. I was too young to get on. But it was one of those where they blew the fire whistle and you look up in the phone book and I was on my bike. So I was fanatical about it then. I started getting Fire Engineering magazine in like 1974, 1975. So my first crew, Pat McAuliffe, I went to teach at Collin College at a very young age, and he pushed me to be the best version of myself. But probably one of my biggest mentors was Rick Lasky. Prior to going to work for Rick, I had been programmed of believing this is how this needs to be done. And I thought because it came from a chief, they made it to that position that that's the way it needed to be. I went to work for Rick, and Rick said, no, it's okay to do this other stuff. And man, we got so much more done, so many more capabilities and all that. And a big part of the reason, and I kind of just discovered this early about writing the book, is I wanted to let people know it was okay to think like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to think outside of the traditional, this is what you got to do and this is what you have to do. If you don't know my jurisdiction or I don't know yours, I don't know your capabilities, I don't know your limitations, I'm not in the best position to tell you what to do. Yet there's a lot of people doing it. And so, I think Rick was certainly a big one. Bobby Halton was a mentor of mine. And so I've just been very blessed. Alan Brunacini was a lot of my leadership soul has a lot of Alan Brunacini, and I had a tremendous amount of respect to what he was doing with Phoenix Fire Department at the time.
Wow. That's awesome. That's a huge list, but a great list. And I love the whole background to it. And so Chief Scott Thompson, you have your book, The Functional Fire Company, and it's been out for quite some time. You are still going strong with presenting that, talking about that, but also you've gone to, again, there's so many other classes that you present, and it's not just, again, like you just said, it's not my way or the highway. These are just suggestions, these things you've learned over time. You've got data in there as well. So when people question, like, yeah, I've done my work, here it is. Like, and it's, it doesn't have to be the Colony way. It's just the way that works for the colony.
Works for
And,
us.
you know, now where can anyone else find you? Where if they wanted to see you if they want to reach out to see if they get some education from you, or if you have any conferences coming up?
Oh man, I got a bunch. I'm going to Collinsville here in December. I got to kind of look at my calendar, but I'll be in Collinsville, Illinois, uh, Mitchell, South Dakota in January.
South Dakota in
A
January.
bunch
I'm
of
sorry.
places in February, huh?
I said South Dakota in January. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm in Pottsboro. I got to look where that is. I mean, yeah, I'm in a couple places, but you can get me in Pottsboro, Indiana. Scott at fireserviceleadership.com. And you know, I'll share. I got some stuff on my site. It's the mentoring program, and also I got a document up there, training basics and essential. They're free if you want to go to my website, fireserviceleadership.com, and go to, I think it's products or buy. You just got to put some information in, but they're free. I'm trying to get that mentor document in every fire department in America. Then what they do with it's up to them, but that's how passionate I am about mentoring. And so, you know, we always talk about leaving it better than we found it. You're doing a podcast. I'm not a podcast person. I don't have the discipline. You know, and so my way is this way. And you know, for those that truly want to do it, you find your niche and you commit to it, and hopefully over the course of 30 or 40 years, you impact one or two people, and that's carried on to the next generation. And that's really the best we can hope for. Um, you know, I was very proud of Louisville and to have been a small part of that organization 17 years ago as their training chief. I was very proud to see how that system performed. It could have went a lot of different ways.
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, I think if you focus on those kind of things, this job can give you so much. It's certainly something where what you put in is what you're going to get back. And I always mention this. I'm just going to say it, but I feel, you know, I'm getting close to retirement. And I just really feel sorry for people who've spent 20 or 30 years doing this and they never gave it a chance. And now they're walking out the door and somebody's going to say, what did you do for your career? And they're going to say, I was a firefighter. And then everything after that is going to be a lie because they were ashamed of what they did. And now they got to make stuff up. But to spend 20 or 30 years doing this and not enjoy the ride, it's going to leave scars, mental and physical scars. We know that. You know, both my boys are firefighters. I'm all in when it comes to firefighter safety, but I got 5 grandbabies and they didn't sign up for this. And so I expect firefighters to be aggressive problem solvers, to train hard, to work hard, to get after it hard, not be reckless. And we can do that. There's a way. I mean, if we can, you know, I always talk about the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. There's human beings who have gotten to a point where they can fly jets 18 inches apart.
Yeah.
We can figure it out in the fire service.
Absolutely. I love
if
it.
somebody can drive a car around a track at 200 plus miles an hour and they can do the training and build the safety systems, we can figure it out in the fire service to perform at a very high level, but we got to commit to it.
Absolutely, Chief. I love that. That is a great message for sure. And I actually kind of another question I just want to ask you is, again, you make my mind work so much on talking to you. I love it. For the mental health aspect of things, what are some suggestions for you? How have you survived for 40 years doing this and having your strong marriage, having your strong family, having strong beliefs and strong culture? Because, you know, as we know, it's taxing and for me, I've said it, I'm very transparent. It's not just the calls for me. It's honestly, I can deal with the calls, but for me, it's the emotional side that happens within the firewall, the house of the fire station. Right. And, you know, the attacks on each other. But whether it's calls or emotional stuff, how do you survive? What are some what's a recommendation? How do you separate fire life to regular life?
Well, I don't, number one. I'm the worst person to ask the question that you just asked. And I'm on my 3rd marriage, so I'll say that. My first one definitely ended because of the job.
Okay.
My second wife, the mother of my boys, she was also a firefighter.
Oh, okay.
So, but, you, and I'm going to say this as tactfully as possible without taking up a ton of time. My very first call as a first responder was a crash at Delta 191. That was my first exposure to this. Was a commercial airline crash at DFW Airport. And so I think back about that, and I never had any problems with it. There was great debriefing. Um, I don't know. The fire service has been my career. It's been my hobby. The reason why I'm still working is because I don't have an exit plan. I don't recommend that, but it's been I've taught at the colleges. I've worked multiple departments at a time. So I'm not saying be like that. I'm just saying I'm not a good person to ask that question. I can tell you this. The generation that is coming into the firehouse and promoting has very little resiliency. They have a hard, even something as simple as an after action review, and the battalion chief going to a captain or a firefighter, hey, why did you pull that line? They get defensive. Whoa, 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 whoa. Answer the question. It's not an attack. We're here to learn, but I don't know. The resiliency is troubling to me. And we see the suicide rate going up, and I, people like Frank Lieb and Dean Alley, much smarter than me, are studying those. I see your books on the back there, are studying that stuff. So I'm going to put it in their hands. I'm not a good person to ask. I love being a firefighter. I don't regret a minute of it. If I had to do it all over again, I would do it. Do I have some mental and physical scars? Yeah, but I mean, I think training and being competent, I think the biggest problems come from shame because you disappoint somebody, or you made that call and you weren't ready. And now you spend the rest of your days going, I wish I would have, or if I only would have. That's tough to live with. But if I come in and I'm committed and I'm trained, and as you mentioned, my intentions are for the right reason, it's much easier to get over a bad day than if you weren't ready for it, because you had a choice. And we never know when this thing is going to hit. I agree with you. Dina Alley wrote an article and she says it's not the calls that's causing us problems. It's what's going on in the firehouse. I have heard some horrible, horrible stories from fire chiefs' behaviors to leadership. And I don't know how you fix that. Hopefully we're going to breed it out of this, but it still exists. My son was probably a victim of one of the worst things that I've heard happening. Not physical, but mental. He was a rookie in Dallas, and I don't know. I don't know how we get away from that, but I think that's a big part of the problem. I don't think the kid is going. It's the human factor.
Yeah.
You see people. It's not the blood. It's the suffering. It's the misfortunes. It's the all those things, I think, is what takes a toll. And I went way overboard now, but I don't understand it. So
I agree.
I can't talk about it like I do other things because I don't understand it.
And I think that's fantastic, Chief. That's you don't have to have all the answers, right? We're not going to have all the answers, but it takes being humble and being real and saying, I don't know the answer. It's a life mystery for me, and but we have resources to help you, and there's resources out there to find those answers to help you maybe feel better or to find help and to talk. And I agree, like you just said, with dealing with certain things at work, I think the hardest part for people is honestly, from my experience, is talking about it. Once you become open to talk about it, you get labeled, like Dina says, like you're now a villain. You're either labeled as the stepchild, or it's got the label on you that you're a rat, and that you don't have loyalty to your department. I think that's some of the things that people are struggling with internally, is that. And for me, I've said it many, many times, I feel that some of that suicide that's coming in is not because of the calls we see, but it's the stuff that we're dealing with behind the walls at our firehouses. And we're afraid to talk about it because we've been labeled as being disgruntled, or we're going to be villainized and ostracized. And like Chief Rhodes says,
weak.
Right. They're weak. And Chief Rhodes, I love that he talks about that openly, and you're going to be excluded, and it comes at a cost. And I think as more people talk about it and feel like, that's one of my things for my platform, is I want people to understand you can be open. If there's something wrong going on in your firehouse, and you know that it's wrong. It's not just the simple of like, hey, he busted my balls, now I feel offended. No, it's attacking somebody, and we carry that internally. It's like I said, for the calls, it's different. I know it's a call. If somebody calls me an asshole when I'm putting them on the ambulance, they're not attacking me personally. They're having a bad day, and they don't mean to attack me. It's just the way they're getting out their stress and anxiety. But if my chief is doing that, or if my captain's doing that, that's completely different. So,
and nothing raises my blood pressure quicker than hearing about a single person who everybody's ganged up on, a kid getting bullied in school. I just have, I mean, you want to piss me off, make a case for that. I mean, I just don't but that's how they were raised.
Yeah.
I mean, they were raised by bullies. They're going to be bullies, or their insecurities are so strong. They got to get the attention off themselves, put it on somebody else. In that mentor packet, there's a page in there that we read to our people on day one. And it's kind of a warning. It's like on a pack of cigarettes. You know, if you smoke, your chance of getting cancer. But we say, do you understand what you're getting into? This is a very dangerous thing that we're doing. It doesn't matter if you're a small volunteer department or FDNY. Every day, the opportunity is there for us to get in a jam, get in a bind. And this job is not for everybody. You've got to have certain commitments, certain qualities, certain character. You've got to have a certain amount of resiliency. And if we push people into this job without considering those things, they're going to have conflicts that they're not going to have to deal with because they never should have been doing this in the first place.
Absolutely.
And so there has to be an awareness. You know, it's Navy SEALs go through all this stuff. And I don't like to compare us to the military because, the military breaks people down, but they're really good about building them back up. The fire service is great at breaking people down. We really suck at building them back up. We leave them whimpering over in the corner, sucking their thumb, and then we kick them out the door. So that's what I said is we still got a lot of stuff to figure out. It really cranks my gears when somebody who never had the same level of treatment done to them does it to somebody else.
Yeah.
If it's a rite of passage, that's one thing. But if it's just somebody just hateful and picking and making up for their own insecurities, I just don't think that has a place.
I love it, Chief. You're absolutely 100% right. It has no place whatsoever. I appreciate this, Chief. It has been a great conversation.
Yeah, it's been fun. It went quick.
It goes very by, especially when it's a good conversation, it goes by so fast. But I also know that you're going to be at FDIC. I was looking at the list and you're there, and it's going to be on your book, correct? On the Functional Fire Company?
Yep. Hour and 45 minutes. I used to do a workshop. Now I'm just doing an hour and 45 minutes.
Okay. Awesome. So if anyone's going to FDIC, please check out Chief Scott Thompson at the conference. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll be there. I'm hoping to meet you in person again and talk about it and catch your program. And since we were talking about mental health, I always like to give a shout out to Next Rung. They're boys out of Georgia and California, Blake Stennett and Charlie Brown. Here's the barcode. And on the back, there is the number for anyone who is listening. The phone number is 833-698-7864. That's 833-NXT-RUNG. Please reach out to them if you're struggling, if you need help. Give them a call, give them a text. They're going to help you out. They're going to find resources for you in your area. If you don't know who to go to, if you're afraid to make an appointment or you don't know how to make an appointment, they're going to help you out with that. Or if you need someone to talk to, they are there all the time. So please reach out to them. There are sources available. And same thing with Frank Lieb and Dean Ali. They're open books. Please reach out to them if you're struggling, if you need help or any questions. The First Responder Center for Excellence is Frank Lieb's program, near and dear to his heart. So you can also reach out to them or look them up online. Chief, it was a fantastic converation. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. With that being said, y'all take care, be safe, and nozzle
off.
Love it.
Right.
You nailed it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome, sir.
I'll see you at FDIC.
Absolutely. Teamed up with a solid group. You'll like it too. The Kitchen Table Foundation. The Kitchen Table Foundation is a mission to help others, first responders, EMS, police. It's a huge network they're building to help people find resources and to help them through life. And they just reached out to me and I just automatically agreed to help them out and to be a part of this team. Their mission is the Kitchen Table Foundation exists to strengthen the brotherhood and sisterhood of the fire service, law enforcement, and EMS They provide a place for first responders to gather, break bread, and find connection through camaraderie, shared experience, and support, rooted in tradition, built on trust, and driven by service. They aim to uphold the mental and emotional well-being of those who run toward the call. Their vision, the Kitchen Table Foundation, envisions a national community in which every first responder is recognized, supported, and empowered, where connection overcomes isolation, and where the enduring values of service, sacrifice, and solidarity are upheld through every season of the job and beyond. And they stand for TABLE, T-A-B-L-E, teamwork, awareness, bravery, loyalty, and empathy. So I'm excited to have them on as a sponsor. I'm excited to have them on to help our community, and it's just awesome for all of us to work together to help each other out.